In 1939, when the Second World War began, Kelvin High School once again contributed to the war effort. The school's slogan was, "Carry on." Indeed, it did. The girls worked tirelessly for the Red Cross, knitting socks and gloves that were sent in bundles for the soldiers. The boys participated in mandatory cadet training as part of the physical education program. The school argued that the training was not to promote militarism, but rather was a means of teaching the duty of citizenship, the most important being the defense of rights and liberties. Day and night, boys and men worked in the shops classes in order to produce over 1,400 rifle parts and splints. Many students believed their services were of better use in uniform. In the first year of the conflict, so many Kelvin boys enlisted that the administration was forced to discontinue grade 12. Some teachers even answered the call to duty. The popular math teacher Clarence Kerr joined the RCAF. One student remembered, "He stole away in the night, and we regret that we had no opportunity of saying goodbye to one who contributed so much to the life of Kelvin." After the war, Kerr returned to the school, but many never came back. When the war ended, 2,640 former Kelvin students had served, many with Bomber Command. 225 had made the ultimate sacrifice. One of them was James Keir. On D-Day, the 22-year-old Winnipeg Rifles soldier landed with his company on Juno Beach in Normandy. 2 days later, after a vicious German counterattack, Keir was taken as prisoner. Soon after, he was killed by friendly fire when Allied planes shot at him, mistaking him for a German soldier. Today, he lies peacefully with several other Kelvin students in the French cemetery Bretteville-sur-Lez. James Keir, who played rugby at Kelvin, would have been thrilled to hear about the team's 1944 season. Led by Donald Smith and Harry Hood, the Kelvin rugby team won the city and provincial championships. After Kelvin, both men played in the CFL. Hood's life was tragically cut short when he died of cancer at age 29. Since his death, the Winnipeg High School Football League awards annually the prestigious Harry Hood Memorial Trophy. It is given to a player who best exemplifies a standard in playing ability, school citizenship, fair play, and scholastic standing. Other graduates in the war years also embodied similar qualities. Mary Elizabeth Baer served as Canada's representative to UNESCO. Later on, she was named a member of the Order of Canada for her lifelong dedication to community service. Alan Gottlieb and Jack McCaig, who were in the same classroom at Kelvin, also were made members of the Order of Canada. Gottlieb was the Canadian ambassador to the United States in the 1980s. McCaig, in the 1970s, was Manitoba's lieutenant governor. Both men most likely would have been taught by Mrs. Macbeth. After 33 years teaching at the school, Mrs. Macbeth, a beloved English teacher, retired in 1945. The editor-in-chief of the Winnipeg Tribune, G. Carlisle Allison, a Kelvin grad, wrote of Macbeth, "When this particular teacher was reading to you, you were transported out the window to the locale of the story. And with her you hung on each finely turned phrase and each $5 word." Since the school first opened, Macbeth had fostered among her pupils a love for English literature. Elaine Grand was one such student. In the 1950s, Grand worked for the CBC. She became the star interviewer on Tabloid, a popular news and talk show across Canada. She was one of the most famous Canadian women at the time. Uncomfortable in the North American spotlight, Grand brought her intelligent interviewing skills to England. There she worked for the more low-key daytime show, Afternoon Delight. Like Grand, throughout his career, Douglas Rain had his moments of stardom. Rain worked mostly as a stage actor, particularly at the Stratford Festival. He is best known, however, as the voice of HAL 9000 in Stanley Kubrick's Hollywood film 2001, A Space Odyssey. When Rain was at Kelvin, he shared the hallways with another future actor and playwright. Tom Hendry was the first literary manager of the Stratford Festival. In 1958, he co-founded the Manitoba Theatre Centre, the first regional theatre in Canada. The year Hendry graduated, Principal J.S. Little also walked out of the school's doors for the last time. Little's achievements were impressive. During his 14 years as the head of the school, Kelvin's War Memorial was completed. He also introduced the Ducks Citizenship and Ducks Scholarship Awards. One Kelvin student who could have won either award was Israel Asper. Highly involved in the school, he was on the curling team. He worked on the yearbook committee with his future wife, Babs, and he also organized Kelvin's first career day. After high school, Asper co-founded CanWest Global Communications. In the 1970s, he was the leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party. Later on, Asper was made a member of the Order of Canada. By the early 1950s, the student body at Kelvin was very active. Some students performed in the school's Gilbert and Sullivan productions, staged at the Playhouse Theatre. Others wrote for the newly established student newspaper, the Etc. They had more opportunities to join school clubs and play on Kelvin teams. There was a United Nations Club which organized students to participate in an annual Model UN. There was also a girls' baton team. They called themselves the Majorettes. These agile young ladies performed at the Kelvin football games. In 1951, they would have cheered for Jerry James, arguably Kelvin's greatest athlete. After his 1 year at the school, Jerry James became the youngest player ever, at 17 years old, to play in the CFL. He went on to win 4 Grey Cups with the Blue Bombers. He was also twice named the league's most outstanding Canadian. Amazingly, he then played 6 seasons in the NHL with the Toronto Maple Leafs. When James was making history in the CFL, Joy Johnson was making her own as Kelvin's student president. In 1957, largely due to Johnson's hard work, the boys and girls of the school were allowed, for the first time in the school's history, to use mixed staircases. Jerry Schwartz was one of the boys who walked up and down those stairs in that historic year. After Kelvin, Schwartz co-founded CanWest Global Communications. He later established Onyx Corporation, a private equity investment firm. He is a billionaire and one of Canada's richest citizens. But even the wealthiest Canadian could not have saved the school's old tower from ruin. In 1912, it had been built more for ornamentation than for posterity. In the late 1950s, the school considered it structurally dangerous, so it was taken down. However, it wasn't merely the school's tower that was unsound. In the early 1960s, a corner of the school had to be shored up due to shifting. Soon after, the Winnipeg School Board decided that a new Kelvin would be built on the same property. In 1962, at the school's 50th anniversary reunion, most grads weren't imagining the new school, but rather they were remembering the old one. Over 4,000 former students packed the school's auditorium for a 2-hour stage show. Jay Ingram played his violin in the school's orchestra that night. Ingram went on to host CBC's Quirks and Quarks. He also was the host of the popular television show Daily Planet and the author of several best-selling books. He is a member of the Order of Canada. During the 50th anniversary celebrations, Ingram listened to the reflective words of his principal, R.J. Cochran, who told the large audience, "Thousands are here, or will come, to see the guy who played center half on the soccer team, the girl who sang in Pinafore, or the fellow who provided the math homework every morning. You may not recognize them, nor they you. But over 40 years of teaching has convinced me that people change very little, no matter what the years have done, to faces and figures."